Will, have you ever had a bad experience with the police?
I've had two bad experiences. The first one's real short and simple. It was 2008. I was on my way to go get my braces removed.
Wow.
And I was speeding down 60.
This is such a specific memory.
As you do as an 18-year-old. And, well, the reason why I remember is because it was September 11th, 2008.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and I was going 79 down 60, and there was a car right next to me that was going 82.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the police pulled me over. And, you know, I could have been clever. I could have been like, oh, my dad died on 9/11. The cemetery closes, you know, or whatever. But it was the first time I'd ever been pulled over, ever.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
And he still gave me a fucking ticket.
Oh, my God.
And the second time I was 22. Yeah, I believe I was 22. And I was on my way back from playing War Machine at the local comic book store. And I was driving in my shitty old Lincoln that, like, the windows didn't go down.
Yeah.
It was bad. And I had let my license expire, and a police officer was up behind me. Yeah.
Oh, no.
He ran my plates, pulled me over, and he told me to get out of the vehicle as he called another cop to come over to bring a drug sniffing dog.
Oh, my God.
And if you know me, I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't do any of that stuff.
You were not straight edge, but you were very clean cut, which was surprising because you didn't exactly look like it either, but neither of us did. Yeah.
The funny thing about it is I had, like, my War Machine army is like $400 sitting in the front seat with me, and like a shit ton of magic cards in my trunk, like just spread everywhere and stuff. And so I'm sitting.
You should have been like, "Bitch, I have hobbies. I can't afford drugs."
I did say that. So, like, no shit. I'm sitting there with the cop who pulled me over while the other cop with the dog was sniffing my car. And I was like, "Is he looking for drugs?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do I look the type?" And he goes, "Honestly, you do." And I was like, man, I can't afford drugs. Like, the models in the front seat, they're expensive. Like, look at my trunk. I've got a shit ton of magic cards. Like, I'm on my way to go play D&D right now. And of course they didn't find anything on me. But then they still fucking gave me a ticket for an expired license.
Right. I'm glad that's all they gave you, though.
Yeah. But those were my experiences. Yeah. Like, not terrible, but also, like, not great either. I got profiled.
Yeah. I mean, as they are to do.
As they are to do. Yeah. I didn't have nearly as rough time with our local police as the main character of the movie that we're going to talk about today.
Wow. What a pro.
Look at that segue.
From a small southern county run by a famously despot sheriff, welcome to Debaser, a film podcast. I'm Jared Rusk, and I'm joined by my co-host Will Taylor. On this show, of course, we explore both new and familiar movies as we bring you details and discussion about them, all in an effort to debase the films and ourselves. Today's episode, a Netflix original that is being hailed as one of the best films of the year, Rebel Ridge. Stay tuned.
You gotta kick it off with a killer to grab attention. Then you gotta take it up a notch.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us.
Who are you? I'm Shiva, the god of death.
Cells. Interlinked.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
All right. Today's film is Rebel Ridge.
That's right.
It's not an amazing title.
No, it's not. But I mean, like, it kind of makes sense because, like, that's a location that they all meet up at.
Right. And it sounds cool, but, like, the double R's.
Well, so,
it just doesn't.
Nah, I guess it doesn't.
It's, it's almost there's a running gag in 30 Rock, an amazing sitcom. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Yeah. Where one of the characters stars in a movie that no one's heard of called The Rural Juror. And every time she says it, everyone's like, the what? The Rural Juror. And you just have to sit there and go, that doesn't have a good mouthfeel.
No, it doesn't. Well, you know, I was surprised that this movie didn't have a color in its title, considering the other movies this guy's done.
Yeah, so he did that twice. So
out of, like, what, 5 movies?
I mean, yeah, I think 5 or 6. Yeah. Let's jump right in.
Yeah.
This movie, Rebel Ridge, came out September 6th, 2024. It's available on Netflix right now. And you probably heard of it if you haven't seen it, because it's been the number one watched movie on Netflix for weeks now. I think it finally just dropped to 2 or 3.
They've released more. They released a new movie called Uglies, I think, which is getting like critically panned. I've seen a bunch of people online like saying like this movie should have come out like maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, Netflix original movies are not that great,
but this one's good.
Right. So they've not been good for a while. But every once in a while,
Beasts of No Nation was good, and that was like their first real.
How many years ago was that? Though I'm saying in the beginning, they were killer, all killer, no filler, and then all of a sudden they just all were crap.
Yeah, that's true.
And then every once in a while they'll do like a real movie, like a Scorsese or something.
A lot of Rebel movies. Now that I'm thinking about it,
that's right. We did Rebel Moon
1 and 2,
which I saw. Our boy Snyder has an anime coming out now too. That's actually okay.
It's out right now. Actually,
I hear it's actually decent.
Oh,
but it's his take on The Boys, and it's like, can you stop doing takes on things that are takes on other things already? Like
his take on The Boys.
That's how I saw it described.
What the fuck?
I know. The man hasn't had an original thought.
I was literally about to say he has no fucking original thoughts at all. I'm sorry. This is not.
I know.
Zack Snyder.
I think his debut film was a remake too, wasn't it? It wasn't Dawn of the Dead his first movie.
Let's stop. Let's stop. Let's just stop.
I love when we get distracted. But I have heard, I remember someone telling me about how she was listening to the podcast and she's like, I had to turn it off when you started talking about another movie though. And I was like, oh, I thought that was fun. Anyway, Rebel Ridge. All right, back on topic.
Yes.
The film was written and directed by Jeremy Saulnier, whose previous credits include Murder Party, Green Room, and Blue Ruin.
All bangers.
All those. He has other movies, but those are the 3 like most known films of his, and they are amazing. I think we've both seen all 3 of those.
Yes. I remember you had us come over. We watched Green Room.
Yeah,
and
I was
like,
very excited for that one. Yeah.
What a fantastic film.
Yeah.
This was so good. And you're like, yeah, he's done some other things too. You should check out Blue Ruin. I think it's like right up your alley. Once again, you never miss with your suggestions to me.
Thank you.
Blue Ruin. I know. Blue Ruin is my favorite of his films.
Yeah.
Not to downplay anything for this movie here, but Blue Ruin.
Yeah.
If any of our listeners do decide to watch Rebel Ridge and enjoy it, I highly suggest Blue Ruin. It is his best movie by far.
Let's just say too, if not to spoil anything, but if you weren't satisfied with the conclusion of this film and you wanted more, check out his other movies.
Yeah, you should.
There's a lot more of what you weren't given in this movie. Let's just say a little wink and a nod.
Yeah,
they are much more extreme than this movie.
Yeah, this one's very tame.
He shows a lot of restraint.
Yeah,
in this
does.
Film, I will say.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
He is such a skilled craftsman at building tension in a film. Oh
Absolutely.
My God. I had to actually take a break twice.
No shit.
During watching this movie so that I could come back to it when I was not as pumped up.
Maybe I'll just drop this in now.
Yeah.
But my boss, Zach, Zach, I know you're listening. Thank you.
Shout out to Zach.
Shout out to Zach. He hit me up and he was like, "Hey, are you guys going to cover this movie? Or have you heard of Rebel Ridge?" I was like, "Oh yeah.
Shit, nice.
We're going to cover it." You know, I actually just watched it. It was something like that, and he was like, "Okay, well, what's your thoughts?" It's like, "Oh, well, it's like a very tense movie. Like, don't watch this movie under the influence because you'll have an anxiety attack because it's very tense."
Yeah.
He goes, "Oh man, I watched a movie not too long called I think it's called Green Room that did that to me," and I was like, "Oh,
buddy,
just so you know, he did this too." And he's like, "Oh fuck, yeah." But I remember like telling him that when I watched it, it reminded me of him. And when we get into like the description of our protagonists, I'll circle back to that. But it was very funny that he had seen Green Room and it was too tense for him. And he was going into Rebel Ridge, not knowing it was the same director.
Yeah. And I think, so you and I knowing his other films made us maybe anticipate a different outcome of this film, because like all the tension, we were like, oh, this could go really bad really fast, and we've seen his other films, so we're like, we know how bad his films can get.
I was waiting for the other shoe to drop the whole movie.
Absolutely. And he wants you to.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But it's not just, he doesn't want you to know that in the context of his filmography, in the context of history, like actual events. You know what I mean? There's a lot of like, you can't not see like so many police cam, dashboard videos or body cam footage, especially when they arrest the main character in the courthouse.
Yeah.
And then the lady that's helping him pulls out her phone to start recording to make sure they don't kill him.
Kill him right there, yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ. we're jumping ahead, but like, god damn, this movie is so good.
I guess the before we move on to the actual details of the film, this guy A, knows his audience, and B, knows that this is going to be on Netflix and not in movie theaters. And so I feel like that might have been a restraint on
I wonder
the outcome of the film.
Yeah, I don't know if it got picked up for distribution by Netflix after it was made or what. So if that factored into him making a bit of a tamer movie or not, you know?
I feel like that's but see, with the profession of our protagonist, it almost feels like the conclusion is supposed to be the natural one.
Right. I agree.
So it's just like there's like layers on layers. This guy, Sonnier, is so good. He's so good.
So I pulled up the cast list because I felt bad that I hadn't finished
That's
it.
okay,
But I want to name, because the lead protagonist in this film, like,
fantastic.
I've never heard of him before.
He's been in like 2 films.
Yeah, I think this is like a big role for him. Like everyone is like, now he's going to be huge now.
Yeah,
because everyone loves him in this movie. His name's Aaron Pierre.
Yes,
and he plays our lead, Terry Richmond. And then of course Don Johnson from Miami Vice and a million other things.
Yeah,
is the evil small town sheriff that's like just fucking him up for no reason. And then Anna Sophia Robb is the judge's assistant or something. That helps him out.
She was in the Gypsy Rose show that was on Hulu. That's where I recognize her.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, the only other cast member I think of note is David Denman, which people will know as Pam's husband on The Office.
Yes, he's Scipio. He's like an informant kind of. He's like playing. He helps the judge's assistant.
Oh, Serpico.
Serpico.
I was
sorry,
like, what are you saying? Yeah,
Like,
that's a reference to a movie about a real life cop that like was trying to out a bunch of crooked
Gotcha.
cops.
I was getting that mixed up with Scipius from Space Marine 2.
Okay, of course.
Too much Space Marine 2.
Of course, it was a Warhammer thing.
Also, the guy from Babe is
very small role, but
it doesn't matter.
In Succession.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anna Sophia Robb is, everyone will also know her as the lady in Bridge to Terabithia. What is that man's name from Babe? I've forgotten his name, but he went vegan because of Babe. Like James Cromwell. It just came to me.
Good job.
Wow. I didn't even open the thing. But he's a really cool dude, and he went vegan or vegetarian at least because of Babe.
Yeah, you told me
he
about
had such a good like experience.
Yeah.
Like I love Babe and Babe 2, man.
Oh, I know you do.
So yeah, that's the cast. Don Johnson really is the only notable person on there.
I recognized him immediately. Well, that's the thing is like the people who are recognizable, I recognize them immediately. Like as you said, Pam's husband.
And Pam's Pam's ex. Don Johnson is having so much fun as the shit-eating grin sheriff. Like,
speaking of like, that one scene where he talks like, "Oh, you just missed
there
my
it is, just
grin."
like he ate shit.
He was, dude. He was having a good time.
God damn, he shows up as Kenny Powers' dad in Eastbound and Down in one of the later seasons, and just has so much fun. You can tell he's like I was meant to be in this show.
Good for him, man.
Yeah, he's great. So the premise of Rebel Ridge is an ex-Marine grapples his way through a web of small-town corruption when an attempt to post bail for his cousin escalates into a violent standoff with the local police chief. I guess he's a police chief, not a sheriff.
Yeah.
I'm used to living in a rural county with a sheriff.
I like how they use the word grapple. And they're almost like
quite literally does a lot of grappling.
Yeah.
The film was written and directed by Jeremy Saulnier, as I mentioned earlier. Reportedly, the film's budget was $40 million, but it's not, sometimes it's a little muddy. You know, it's not always.
Well, it's a streaming movie. You never really know.
Exactly. And they don't release full figures for those.
And then you have no idea what it made.
Right. Because it's a streaming movie, I don't have a box office number because there really isn't one. However, it has been very successful for Netflix. Yeah. It was the number one most watched film on Netflix for, I think, the first 2 weeks, maybe even 3. And it is on track to become one of Netflix's most watched films ever. At the time that I wrote this, which was over a week ago today now already,
nice.
It was Netflix's 7th most viewed English language film.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I think it must be even higher by now. Rebel Ridge has a 96% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes.
I think that's a little high.
Really?
I have some complaints, but regardless, that's really good though.
We'll get into
for like
that.
a Netflix movie.
It is. I'm no longer entertaining audience scores because they are too easy to manipulate.
Don't tell me the
scores.
Audience score is like really low because
it's not really low, but it was like a high 70 or low 80.
Okay, because this is like an anti-copaganda movie.
Well,
and a black lead.
There are 2 things working against this movie, I think. Yeah. And
Just my luck.
I don't quite want to get into spoiler season like stuff just yet.
Sure.
But I think part of it is like, yeah, it's a little bit of like, it could be written off as like a Black Lives Matter movie, but also for the people that are okay with that, it maybe doesn't quite go far enough at the same time by the end of the movie. But I really want to talk about that later.
Okay.
I have a lot to say about that because I thought a lot about this.
I was like, that's what we're here to do.
Yeah,
is have
and
a
this
lot to say
movie
about
is
movies.
really good to prime discussion about that, I think. It
100%.
has a lot to say without just being on the nose about it, but
yeah, kind of.
yeah.
Well, I guess we'll get into it.
Well, let me roll into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, listening back to the Long Legs episode, I want to apologize. I kept cutting you off because I didn't want to get into spoiler stuff until later. And then there were so many like threads where I didn't circle back on. So I feel like
dude,
maybe I blue balled some listeners last week.
That's the nature of the beast, man. I'll tell you, like straight up, dude. We'll record an episode, and I will be driving home, and I'll be like, "Fuck, I forgot."
Yep.
To say this thing.
I'll be sitting here and be like, "Oh, God damn it, I should have said that on pod," and I'll text you and be like, "I meant to tell you this."
It's okay. I'm not worried about it. It wouldn't be the first, and it's definitely not going to be the last.
Yeah, but we will definitely hammer down my feelings about how this film ends.
Yeah,
when we get to it.
Sounds good.
So film critic Adam Graham gave the film a positive review, saying Rebel Ridge is a tightly wound, extremely well-executed action thriller that plays to its strengths and comes off like a 70s genre exercise. And you know I love those.
Mm-hmm.
Critic Ruben Peralta Regaud also gave the film a positive review, saying, not only is Rebel Ridge a thriller that works perfectly in its genre, but it offers a profound reflection on corruption, power, and morality in an America that feels increasingly dislocated. Over on Letterboxd, user Adam Tyler left this review. He's on the Wikipedia is going to make its way into my everyday vernacular.
I was going to fucking reference that. It looks like he's on the Wikipedia.
She just yells it like,
yeah.
She's like, oh my God, he's on the Wikipedia page.
It's just so fucking good.
All right. So in this film,
yes,
we open up with a young black man riding a bicycle down the road.
Listening to some fucking heavy ass
blasting
metal.
Iron Maiden.
That's what it was, yeah.
It's Iron Maiden, that's right. And there's a cop going berserk behind him.
Swerving back and forth, got his lights on.
Yep, and then just crashes into his bike, knocks him off the fucking bike.
Yeah.
He gets all skid up.
And that's where half of the budget went into because that CGI was fucking awful.
Of him crashing?
Yeah.
Oh. I didn't clock it, I guess.
It looked really bad. I watched it twice and was like, yeah, this looks a little rough.
I mean, Netflix's CGI budget seems to be low.
Has to be.
So,
Has to be.
But cop goes, it's Pam's ex that we mentioned earlier.
That's right.
Cop goes whole hog, let's say, and guns drawn, handcuffs him, puts him in the back of the car and, starts like dragging it out, being like, I'm going to search your backpack. He's like, I can't do that. And he's like, all right, I'll just bring the canine out. And he's like, if I let you search it, will you let me go?
Yeah, because this guy's, he's on a time clock.
Right.
Yeah.
And through the cop hassling him and figuring all this out, we learn his entire backstory.
Mm-hmm.
He's a former Marine that's just quit his job and sold all his belongings so that he can come bail his cousin out of jail who just got arrested for possession.
Mm-hmm.
But
he saved enough money to not only bail his cousin out, but also to give them both a new life.
He's going to buy a pickup truck so that a dually specifically so that they can haul boats, for a living. Which is like, I know like people who actually do that, who just like haul things like cross country, like, and then you just like bid on these guys.
I had when I worked logistics, I had a driver.
Oh, that's right. If you fucking did this for a living for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a driver who had a fifth wheel placed in the back of his truck so that he could do just that.
Yeah. Nice.
On the weekends when he wasn't driving.
Yeah.
So.
But he volunteers all this to the cop in the effort of like speeding this up so he can get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And
being very as respectful as he can. He's
right.
He doesn't want any trouble. He knows what the situation kind of looks like, feels like. Right. He just wants to get this done. He's on a time limit.
And we find out a little later too that he needs to get his cousin out of jail as fast as possible because if he gets transferred to a prison, he might get assassinated because he previously, I guess, like narked on a murderer and got him put away.
Yeah.
And so if he gets put into general, lockup in a prison,
it's going to be bad.
He might get killed.
Yeah.
So he's like, I got to get him out of prison as fast, out of jail as fast as possible in case he gets transferred.
Mm-hmm.
And the cop is like, okay, you're free to go. However, I am seizing all of your money. It's like 30 grand,
Well,
26 grand, I think.
Remember the other one showed up. There was another one.
Oh, yeah, there's another cop who's way worse.
Way worse. He's like, yeah, you can tase him if you want.
Yeah, who's like ready to just like start assaulting him. Yeah. But he's like, well, I'm confiscating all of your money.
Ooh, hold on. One last detail I want to point out. All of the stuff after our protagonist gets knocked off of his bike happens behind the car, behind the police cruiser. Which
great detail.
Yeah, which comes into play later on.
Yes, because the only time they get in front of the car is when he searches the bag so that it can all be on the level and everything. That's literally the only thing that happens in front of their dash cam, which is what you're talking about.
Yes.
And it becomes a factor later on in the story.
Yes.
God damn. Okay, so
I just remembered it.
At this point, he's explaining to him that he's taking all of his money. And it's like, he's like, you can fight for it, blah, 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 blah. This is what's known as civil forfeiture.
Yes.
Asset seizure by the police. It is a real thing, and it is a real problem. And it has been abused by the police for like 40 or 50 years.
Yeah, man. They like that's something that this movie does so well is explain shit that the police can actually do to you. The movie really does feel like it's like the guy, the writer was like, I'm going to get on my soapbox about this real thing that's like destroying like working people's lives. And it's so insane that it's allowed to keep happening. I remember when cracked.com used to be very big and they do their lists.
Yeah. Oh, those were the days. Yeah.
There was a 5-point list about things that the police can do that's totally legal.
Right.
And like, I'm not even kidding you, Jared. 4 of the 5 things were in this film. Like as they're explaining it, I'm like, oh my God. I remember I was watching it with my wife and she's like, can they do that? I'm like, yeah, this is like textbook shit that they can do.
Yep. I've read about it for years. NPR's talked about it. Yeah. A lot of like people that are talking about like reforming and stuff to the police have been like, hey, like police organizations take like billions of dollars every year and they just turn around and like fund themselves with it. It's fucking crazy. Like, how are they allowed to do this?
They'll take your car and they can auction it off later on.
Yeah. And they can sell it. Yeah. And that turns out to be a big plot point too. Like you find out that the cops have been keeping people in jail long enough so that there's no evidence that they stole like everything from them and they can't prove it in time and all this crazy shit.
Plus as in the next scene, because he goes to the courthouse,
right?
Our court lady from
right. So he gets away, but he decides to go straight to the courthouse and explain to him like, listen, I need to bail out my cousin, but like the cops took my money.
So you guys have it technically.
Yeah, he's like, so it's in your possession, and then that's when he meets Anna Sophia Robb's character, who decides to like take him aside and like, okay, here's the situation you're in. Here's why you're fucked. Here's what the police are going to do.
Yeah, because it won't say you versus the
right. If you fight it, it's not going to be a court case between you and the police. It's going to be the money is its own entity essentially, and you have to prove that it wasn't received through ill gain, like drug money or something. So insane. I was actually, when I was preparing for this pod, I was on like multiple web pages, like researching like how this is different in every state. Of course, every state has its own rules.
Of course,
every state has its own rules about where the money goes once they obtain it too. And like, there's even some states where like the DA is like, we get some of that. Give me that. Yeah. There's some states where you have to prove it was ill-gotten, but most states you have to prove that you're innocent and that the money wasn't ill-gotten.
That's crazy.
But yeah, because people are afforded civil rights, you have to, the cops have to prove that you're guilty before they can like convict you.
But items, I guess, don't.
Property, like money, cars, homes, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Do not have that luxury in our justice system. And that's what this movie like touches on, you know, and it's not like this movie isn't very, like the diner scene where she's explaining this to him. It goes very quickly. We're talking about it longer than the actual scene is.
Yeah.
But like it's highlighting something very important that's really happening.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
I've heard for years, by the way, about truck drivers have this problem because they live on the road.
Yes.
And they don't really trust banks, or a bank account is not convenient for them. So they carry all their cash with them, or a large amounts of cash.
Yeah.
Like thousands of dollars they have stashed away in their cab because they're on the road all day. They're just going to, they need it with them to spend anyway.
Right.
And they don't want to fuck with like a debit card or have to go to a bank branch.
Yeah.
That's not going to work for their lifestyle.
What if you go to a different state and they freeze your card?
Exactly.
That kind of shit. Yeah.
And yeah, that shit happens all the time. They live on the road. I'll just spend cash. It's fine.
Right.
Well, if the police pull them over and find, $2-3 grand in the cab, they're like,
what are you doing with this?
We're seizing this now.
Yeah.
Because we just assume that you have a large amount of cash. It's ill-gotten money. So we're just going to take it. and they have so little that they can do about it. It's fucking crazy. I've always heard this from cops or from truckers, and they like have to find like ways to hide it in their cab so the cops don't take it, not robbers, cops.
That's wild.
Anyway, back to the film. So Terry finds out that like he can try to fight to get the money back, but it's going to take like a year, and he'll probably spend more in legal fees than the money that was taken from him. So he's kind of screwed either way. So he decides he has a backup plan, which is his employers. He used to work at a Chinese food restaurant,
which he name dropped in the initial opening scene.
Right.
He was like,
so the cops know about it.
Yeah.
Too.
My former boss fronted me this money or lent me this money or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And his backup plan is to get his old boss to like send him some more money through a wire or something so that he can bail his cousin out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Terry goes to the police station the next day and decides to file a police report for having been robbed of that money and is listing the police officers as the robbers.
It's funny. He's like describing Pam's ex-husband or,
he's like 6'2", 250 easily. And he goes, and there's suspect number 2.
Yeah.
And then the cop that's filling out the report realizes what's going on and says, excuse me for a minute. She goes and gets the chief.
She's wise to this too. She knows.
She realizes at that moment.
Yeah.
And that's when she goes and gets the chief.
Right.
And that's when Don Johnson enters the film and just is chewing every piece of scenery we got here. It's so good. But he like basically reads Terry the riot act and is like, I'm going to arrest you for filing a false police report, blah, blah, blah. Turn off your cell phone. I know you're recording this kind of shit.
He's really wise to it, man.
Yeah.
Like he knew what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he still is underestimating Terry.
Oh yeah, 100%. Look, he doesn't know who the fuck this person is.
Yeah.
Like he does a little bit of research the very next day.
Well,
but
we'll get there.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they make an arrangement. He's like, "Listen, your cousin's getting transferred to the county like tomorrow. If you come by here to like at like 4 or 5 or something, you can talk to him."
He's supposed to be there at 9 a.m.
Yeah, 9 a.m. The next day.
And they're remodeling the jailhouse, so they have to send him to the penitentiary.
That's why they're transferring him.
Yeah.
And now it's important to note Terry proposes the steal, not the police chief.
That's right. Yes.
But the chief agrees, and then he leaves amicably. I mean, it's tense, but he leaves.
Yeah.
And he comes back the next morning at like 9:02, and there's a bus pulling away. And the chief is like, "Oh, you just missed him." He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, we had to bump it up. You just missed your cousin. He's on that bus going to prison now." So Terry gets on his bike and hustles after the bus. And
he takes all the back roads to catch up to him.
Yeah, that's true. Because you see him learning all the roads earlier in the film, and studying the geography, so he knows like how to navigate this town. But he catches up to the bus on bike, and bangs on the window and tells his cousin like, "Hey, I'm going to bail you out. Like it's okay. Like I'll get you out of here." Then he goes back to the police station and just drops his bike and just stands in the parking lot and stares at the police station. And then and so the cops are like, "What do we do?" And
they're looking him up. Yeah.
So the one cop starts looking him up and like, "I'll look up what his service record is." And he's like, "Yeah, did he serve in combat? Was he in the war?"
Yeah, he was like,
and they find out, no, he was never stationed overseas. And he's like, "Okay, so he never saw combat."
No combat experience. And he like breathes.
Yeah, you can see him relax, and he's like, "I can handle this then."
Well, and so, but here's a fun one, right? So, the guy's listing off like other things. He's got a rifleman's award.
Yeah, and he's like,
whatever.
"Oh, they give that to everybody."
And then they say, and he's a McMap.
He's like, "Oh, what is that, like navigation or something?"
Yeah. So funny, Zach, I'm going to have to bring him up. Here's my circle back.
Yeah.
Zach spent 12 years in the Marines.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like he had said to me previously on one of the jobs that we had worked, he used an acronym and he goes, "Oh yeah, us Marines love acronyms." And shit.
God damn, that's a literal line in this film for people listening.
I know. That's why I texted him. And he was like, "Yeah, dude, they had us dead to fucking rights too, because when they mentioned the rifleman's marks, and the guy's like, oh, they give that to all of them." He's like, "It's true." Yeah, man, he had me cracking the fuck up.
That's great.
But yeah, so he reads the thing and they're like, "We don't know what the fuck a McMap is, so we have to turn on the Wi-Fi to Google it."
He just assumes it's navigation. And so the police chief is like, "I got this," and he just walks out there to go, tell him off basically. Yeah. Well, the other cop keeps looking it up.
The McMap is Marine Corps martial arts program. Yeah,
and not only that, but our protagonist, Terry, is listed on the Wikipedia page as she shouts.
He's the guy in the picture on the Wikipedia page. So it looks like he's like the main instructor for the martial arts program.
So he's an expert in hand-to-hand combat, essentially.
He knows how to de-escalate a situation via force.
Through like less than lethal close quarters combat, let's say, you know. But the police chief does not get this information. And so he goes
because he's already out there.
Yeah, he's already outside. And he just starts, him and Terry go back and forth. It's an incredible scene. It's very tense.
Also, Terry drops the line. He goes, "We Marines, we love acronyms.
We have acronyms for everything."
Yeah, and so like right now, I'm going through PACE.
PACE, yeah. There's priority, which he was like, priority 1 was me coming down here to bail out my cousin.
Yes.
And he's like, A is alternate, I believe.
Yeah.
Was the plan that he had with the chief, where
the
chief was going to let him meet his cousin and talk him out of it. And then C was his contingency, which was his boss, his old boss, forwarding him money to get his cousin out too. And he's like, and now it's out the window because he finds out that the police chief had his old employer, raided.
Yep.
And
by the next county over.
By the next county's cops, and being under suspicion of illegal activity or something. And so that, he doesn't have any money to send to Terry now. And so he's like, so now you got me on E.
Yeah.
And you don't want to know what that means.
What was E again?
I don't think he ever says it. Because when I was watching it the second time, I was waiting for him to drop what E was. I wonder if it's emergency or
extrication, maybe? I don't know.
Extraction.
Extraction. The movie with Chris Hemsworth?
Actually, but listen.
I know. It's actually good.
But so what happens is the shittier cop that's inside the police station finds out that Terry's a master hand-to-hand combat guy.
Boss.
And he opens up the door and he goes, "Chief, back away from him. Put some distance between you two."
And he walks back and Terry walks right up to him.
That's when he maintains distance. Yes. Exactly. He maintains closeness. And so the chief goes to pull his gun and Terry grabs it and he goes, we don't want to do that. And then takes the gun and disassembles it. It's so good. I think it's in the trailer. So like most people listening have seen this, but like, God, it's so good. The scene is so well paced.
Shut up. All right. Podcast
I didn't mean to do that, but it was great.
That's okay.
But yeah, it's so incredible. Of course, it all builds to that. It's fantastic. But then what proceeds is the other cop, the shittier guy, comes running up to intervene too. And Terry disarms and rolls to the ground with both of them. And like they have like a tussle, but Terry's in control the whole fucking time.
He disarms the other guy, and then the chief tries to pull a gun, like a leg
his
gun.
Leg holster, yeah.
And he fucking disarms that guy.
He grabs it too and drops all the bullets out of the...
Yeah, and then picks up the police chief because there are people there that are building the jail.
They're not cops. They're just
not cops.
Workers.
Yeah, but all of them... This is Louisiana, I believe?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
And so all those guys are armed, and one of them, I guess, from the way
has
that
a rifle in his...
Terry explains, he's like, that guy has got steady breathing and a really good aim. If anybody's going to knock me out, it's going to be him. Tell him to put his gun away.
Well, because he's like, I will shoot him before he shoots me is why. Yeah.
We don't want any of that stuff.
But yeah, he takes the police chief, that guy's a hostage, and walks back into the police station and ties up the cops and basically gets into their evidence room
and sees all the money
and sees that they have a fucking armory, like tons of assault rifles and a grenade launcher and all this shit
that they do not need in that small town.
But hey, a lot of police stations have this shit.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I won't get into it, but there's lots of documentaries and news programs about how like in the last 20 years, like police stations and sheriff's departments have a lot of like weapons and armor and stuff from the war, like Iraq and Afghanistan
that got
surplus.
Yeah.
And now that's why like when there's a little protest downtown, all of a sudden the fucking little rinky dink, sheriff's department shows up in a fucking APC with guys kitted out like they're going to get hit by an RPG. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
There's just people here with signs, man. What's going on? Anyway,
it's crazy.
I digress. Saw that first pan, so and it happens in like every town now in America, it feels like.
Yeah.
Anyway, he also sees that there's just tons of cash on the other side of the evidence room. Tons and tons of cash. And he tells the one cop that he's got pilfering it for him. He's like, just take my money out
leave, and he even left.
Oh, he only takes 10,000. He doesn't even take the full 26.
He takes the money for the bail.
Yeah, that's right.
And he says a deal is a deal because
he's still trying to honor the original deal.
Yeah, he doesn't want any trouble. He just wants to get his cousin out of the fucking jail.
He's doing what he needs to do to prevent anyone from dying on every side. Essentially, he's so well restrained. He's so great. But so he has $10,000 taken out of there, and he has the other cop drive him. It's very elaborate. I won't get into all the details, but like the way he has everything like rehearsed, where he's like, I disabled all the phones. The cops don't have their guns. The cop that he has escort him outside in front of the redneck militia that's building outside. Like she has a gun and handcuffs, but like the gun is unloaded. He took all the bullets out so that she can't turn it around on him and all this stuff. He's not actually fully handcuffed too.
Yeah, he's holding one of the cuffs to make it look like he is.
He has a very elaborate plan and he executes it so well. It's so good.
Jared, I know you love when a person is so good at their job.
You know it. I'm literally such a nerd for that stuff where like Michael someone Clayton has thought out every single step of this.
Yeah.
And they're so rehearsed in like how they're doing it. And like, I know exactly what's going on. Like stop, gun on the deck kind of thing, anyway, it's great. I was really loving that part. But he has the cop drive him away, and then he hops on his bike and takes off and gives himself a little bit of a head start to get to the courthouse.
He also breaks down her barrier because the cop that he's trusts, I guess, is the only person of color.
I think it's Officer Sims is her name.
Sims is her last name. Yeah, she's the only female cop there and the only cop of color there. So he,
and she has the oldest car. In the whole patrol too. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I watched a video essay by this YouTuber FD Signifier.
Oh, I know him.
Yeah. He did a video essay recently about like how black cops won't save you because they're not black cops. They're cops.
Yep, it's the blue line.
There are only three races here as white, black, and cop.
Yep,
or whatever. So. Whenever she puts that uniform on, she is a part of them, but he's trying to, I guess, tear down that wall to make him more of a sympathetic character. Yeah. And like,
well, and you can tell he sees in her, like, maybe because she's a woman and because she's black, he's like, she's a little bit more sympathetic to me here. Yeah. And on one hand, she kind of is, but she's not on his side.
No, and he's trying to meet her on a human level.
Right.
Like,
there's this is important, but while she's walking him out to the car to get away, one of the redneck guys shouts like, we should string him up.
Yeah.
And she turns around and goes, hey, this is a veteran going through a crisis. Now we've handled it. So do your job, go away.
That's right.
And he's like, hey, thanks for that. And she's like, that was for me, not for you.
Yeah.
It's a great little, like, it's cool. I have more to say about her later because something very important happens at the end of the film.
Yeah. But it's just like it's something to touch on is he's trying to meet her at a human level,
right? But she is
at her core currently,
right,
a cop.
Yeah.
So you can't really reason with her yet. I'm going to readdress that point. That's fine.
Later.
Yeah, we'll get there
because it's a very good point. I will say.
And, but but he rides his bike to the courthouse, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, and he is very quickly filling out all the paperwork to get his cousin taken out, and he gets it all through. Just as the police come barging into the courthouse, and oh my God, it's so he's sweating like profusely while he's
because he just hustled over there.
And he's bike. Signing in, and like the guard is like, you good? Because he's like pouring sweat on the floor. It's so good. Anyway, the cops come barging in and arrest him, and he puts his hands in the air, goes down. He's very compliant, and of course they tase him.
Yeah, the one guy who really loves tasing people tased him.
But they make him so like he's such a strong man. He just rips the taser off. It's so great. But that's when Summer, I think it is,
pulls out her phone.
She's helping him, but she is also pulling out her phone to make sure that the cops don't kill him, basically.
And she gets fucked over because of it.
Yeah, well, that's the cops know. They start getting clued in that she's on his side, essentially, and it does not work out well for her.
No.
But instead of arresting him officially, because he assumes like it's fucking over for me, cops actually, it's so tense because you're like, they're just going to kill him now. Mm-hmm. And they even take him out back of the courthouse, put him in the back of a SUV, and Pam's ex-husband like picks up the chief, and he loads up like I think a shotgun and a duffel bag in the back of the car when he gets in with him. And you always see from Aaron, like Terry, that's it. His real name is Aaron. I almost said that instead, but it's Terry. That's right. you see this whole scene from Terry's point of view because it's so tense.
Yeah.
And he's just like, am I going to get fucking murked here? Is that what this is? Is this an execution now?
Yeah.
Because it seems plausible. But they drive him and he's like, may I ask where we're going? And he's like, just wait.
Chill
and
out.
Don Johnson does this long diatribe about...
He explains to them, to Terry, like...
Yeah, he's like, you saw a lot of money back there, didn't you?
This is what we're doing, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, well, we have to do that to survive because they keep cutting our budget. Blah, blah, blah,
Oh,
blah.
because there was an incident where an arrest went bad, if I'm not mistaken.
And they got sued and the city almost went bankrupt because of it.
Yeah.
And so that's why Summer believed that it was like something to do with, it was a corruption thing and it like tightened the belt and they all had to be a little cleaner, essentially. Yeah. And the chief is using that as an excuse of why their budget got cut and everything. He's like, we have to get money where we can now. We have to turn a profit instead.
Yeah. And you got a margarita maker.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, you heard about that. Well, we got to boost morale around here still too. But they take him to a hospital and they say, your cousin is being airlifted here. And
there's been an accident.
There was something happened at the prison.
Yeah.
And, of course he flips out and he yells, I told you,
It's like, oh,
hold on.
Before we start placing blame here.
But he's like, we're going to give you your money back, all of it, $26,000. And you're going to buy that truck you were going to buy anyway. And you're going to never come back to this town or it's going to be bad for everybody.
And if you don't buy this truck, we're going to assume.
We'll know the deal's off. Yeah. And Aaron agrees, or Terry. And goes in to see his cousin. And of course, he's dead. He got stabbed to death.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only time we ever see him in the whole film is on that bus. He's just dead in a hospital bed after that.
Yeah. And he takes... so
it's worst case scenario now.
He takes his patient wristband off and wears it.
And then like he explains what happened to Summer. And she's like, are you going to help me like bust these cops open? And he's like, no,
I need to leave.
I'm out of here. Fuck that. You know, he's like, they ruined my life. My cousin's dead.
Yeah.
Like, what do I care now? Fuck this place.
I have nothing left here.
Which is reasonable.
Yeah.
Like it's not his fight anymore. Like he doesn't have any skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's no one to save. Like his cousin's dead. But then as retribution, the cops that night break into Summer's house and shoot her up with heroin.
That's right.
And she can't call the police because she realizes it was the police. And also we find out later that if she reports it, they'll think she's a drug addict because apparently she's had issues in the past with addiction.
She lost her kid.
I think she's on like a parole program at work.
Yeah. And
she lost custody of her kid. Yeah.
The only way she can keep her job is
by staying clean and testing negative on her drug test.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, she calls Terry panicking because she's overdosing.
And he had already picked up the truck. He was leaving.
Yeah. And he's already left town.
Yep.
Well, he comes back into town to come rescue her and takes care of her that night. And she survives. I don't think he administers Narcan in that scene.
No, that's going to be later on.
That's at the end. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, of course, as he's leaving town, the really shitty evil cop,
the one that loves
the most evil cop,
yes,
spots him, pulls him over.
But pulls him over without his lights on.
That's true. And there were cops blockading the road
way down the way too. Yeah.
But this cop is alone, essentially with Terry. And in a very tense scene, he throws a gun in the car and says, gun! And starts opening fire on Terry.
But this is not after he explains everything. He's like, good job catching the lights.
I forgot what the conversation was.
But he explains everything to Terry because he's like, I've got you fucking dead to rights.
Yeah.
I'm going to rub this shit in your fucking face because you made me look like an idiot. And then he threw the fucking gun in there. And it did not go well for him.
Nope. Terry only gets shot in the arm.
Oh, it goes through his back.
Oh, that's right. He had bullets in his back too. Yeah, because you see him getting pulled out later. They shoot tons of bullets at him as he's driving away.
Yeah, but
there's a shotgun just unloading into the truck at one point.
Right. The only bullet that hit him, it went through his back and into his arm. He leaned forward when the guy said gun, and that's the only part that hit. It was. Oh, okay. And then he goes backwards to catch the guy's arm, and then puts it into down on his window and disarms him.
Yeah.
And then pushes him out and tases his
I thought one went clean through the arm and then the two others went in the back. But I think you're right. That makes more sense. But anyway, he drives off through the field, manages to get away, but the police are still unloading into his truck, and that's how he gets some bullets in him. But he goes to the Chinese restaurant that he used to work at.
And also somehow tells Summer to also go there, I believe.
Yeah, he calls her, I think, from the phone there and says like, hey, come up here.
Oh, that's what it was, yeah.
And she finds him, his old boss was a medic in the Korean War and is like pulling the bullets out of him and patching him up. And that funny scene where she sees like behind the scenes of this Chinese restaurant, and it's like, yeah, they're just like regular guys. But it's like
there was
really
nothing nefarious happening here.
No, but they're just like really cool dudes.
Yeah.
And then he's like, this is my boss, Mr. Lau, I think it was.
Yeah.
And she's like, he was in the Korean War. And she's like, thank you for your service. And he's like, no, he was on the other side.
Yeah. That was a good one. Well, and this scene, I believe, happens after she goes to work and
finds out that she's being surprise drug tested.
Surprise!
And she's losing her job. She finds out. Yeah.
And then she goes to try and visit her daughter. And the police show up.
Yeah.
But the people there didn't call them. So they're like, clearly she's being watched.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So she's like, listen, we're fucked. Like, this is going bad. And he's like, yeah, I should have known when they tried to buy me off that something was like really bad here. They know I know too much, essentially. I saw too much in that evidence room. So he decides, he's accepting the hero's journey at this point. So after that, Summer and Terry are like, okay, how do we blow this open? And she's like, well, my ex-husband knows a little bit. He's the guy at the courthouse that arranges the bails and everything.
That's her ex-husband?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was the ex-husband. He was the guy that is always at the courthouse. Yeah. That's her ex.
Oh, I had no idea.
That's why he was at the Pinewood Derby with the son.
That's so fucking funny.
Yeah. Because you find that out at the Pinewood Derby.
Yeah.
When he walks up and he's like, get away from your mom, kiddo, or whatever. And you're like, oh, it's fucking him.
It's this guy.
The Brett Gelman looking asshole.
Yeah.
But anyway.
The person who should have been played by Saulnier's muse. What's his name?
Oh, Macon Blair.
Yeah, he should have been played by Macon Blair.
Actually, I wonder if he was supposed to be
coded so fucking hard.
I wonder if he was supposed to be him or like maybe one of the cops at some point.
Yeah,
but like maybe couldn't be in it or whatever.
He
did produce this movie.
I know he did. Yeah.
But so they talk to this guy and they're trying to figure out like, hey, what are the cops doing? Like, what's the whole deal? Like, why are they embezzling this money? Why are they trying to cover it up and kill us because of it? And he's like, I don't really know a whole lot, but who does is the judge and your old boss,
and also
Summer's old boss.
Also consider, when did all this start? 2 years ago. Like, that's the only real clue that he gives them.
Right. And because of this case where somebody sued the department. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they break into the judge's house and he knows that they're there and he's like, I'll talk. You don't have to, you don't have to intimidate me.
I think he expected.
He was expecting them that night because you find out that he intentionally drug tested Summer so that he could apparently remove her from all of this. Because he was like, this was the cleanest. He tells her, he's like, this was the cleanest way to get you out of this.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I didn't want you to get wrapped up in all of this. And he's like, I figured if I just fired you, for testing positive, like you'd be clean and you could leave, like the cops wouldn't be after you anymore or whatever. But he tells them everything they need to know. But also you find out that he has overdosed on his like deceased wife's medication. And he plans to just die that night. And so they call the police and, they don't call the police. They call an ambulance.
Yeah.
I should be more specific, obviously, to come and save him at the last minute.
Right.
But then they get out of there.
But he explains the plot. He tells them.
He tells them that the cops are like, they arrest people, seize their money, and then keep them in jail long enough that they can't contest the money.
Yes.
And they can't try to pull the cruiser like dash cam footage and body cam footage. I guess it's only dash cam footage.
Yeah. Because they only keep it for a certain amount of time.
Right. It's like 90 days and they keep them in jail for longer than that, even though they shouldn't be.
They keep them in jail for 90 days exactly. Every single time, 90 days.
Oh, and they get the judge to sign off on it so that they can keep it. And they can't say like, well, listen, they searched me illegally to get that money. And they can't prove it in court because now the footage has been deleted.
Right. Yeah.
The retention period has passed.
Exactly. The funny thing is like when they mention 90 days, is like, why is it always 90 days? And the judge is like, well, that's just a misstep on their end. They should have like randomized it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was a little too obvious because Summer figured it out like within a day of looking. You know?
So like these guys are smart, but like not that smart.
No, they're cops. I have a story I probably shouldn't share.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll tell you off pod.
Okay, that's fine. Subscribe to us on Patreon to get
on
the
Debaser Plus, and we'll tell you the full story that Jared is thinking he should not say out loud right now on mic. Okay. Okay, so they break into the courthouse to get all of the dash cam footage. There's like a bunch of SD cards with all of it. And in particular, they're looking for the one where
Terry's cousin.
Apparently his arrest has some damning footage on there.
Well, not just that, but also like it's within the period because he just got arrested.
Yeah.
So, and the police obviously know that what's his name got away, and he knows way too much. So they go to the courthouse to try and get those records and burn them down so that nobody can get a hold of them.
Yeah. But essentially, there's like a bunch of SD cards of dash cam footage of multiple arrests that they don't want to produce in court so that they can prove that like the money wasn't obtained illegally. In fact, the searches were probably illegal too.
Probably.
But they're being held in the courthouse, and so they break into the courthouse that night to get the SD cards out so that they can leak them to like the press or something.
Mm-hmm.
And as they're in the courthouse, the cops are setting fire to it, and so they manage to escape.
His cousin's name's Mike.
Mike.
Okay. So off.
I mean, he's already dead at this point in the film.
Yeah.
But Summer is like, you go on ahead. I have to go get something before we leave the courthouse. And of course, she's trying to get her urine sample out of the fridge and destroy it so that she can't technically get fired.
Yeah.
Which, is a misstep on her part because, of course, the cops catch her.
Yep.
And Terry's waiting outside for her and sees her being dragged out by the police. And is like, well, they're not just arresting her. They might just be killing her at this point because she knows that they were burning the courthouse down.
Mm-hmm.
So he follows the cops and waits until one of them is all alone and then just rams his cruiser with Terry's car and gets the jump on the cop and like says like, where are they taking her? You need to tell me right now.
Yeah.
So Terry arranges gets on the phone with the police chief and arranges a swap. He's like, I'll give you the SD cards if you give me back Summer. And they agree to meet at Rebel Ridge, the titular area, which is just like a road that's on a hill or something. I don't know. I don't remember the geography because like not too much actually takes place there. The police are all like waiting there at dawn and like posted up ready to like shoot the fuck out of him, even though he's supposed to meet the police chief there alone. But what Terry actually does is he breaks into the police station because there's only like, I think one cop there. He attaches like a pole to his dually and rips the back wall out of like the evidence room so he can get into the armory. And he takes the grenade launcher.
Yeah.
Well, he takes all their guns so that they can't use them, but he takes the grenade launcher specifically and then loads it with all of the smoke rounds because he's going to have a non-lethal shootout with the police, basically.
The Razzle Dazzlers.
Yeah, the Dazzler, he calls it. Yeah. Oh my God, it's so cool. I'm just like pumping my fist in the air at this point, Yeah. But the cops are like, oh my God, he's at the police station, and they're like freaking out. Yeah, and they start running back. So the other cop, Sims, that the black police officer that like helped him, she didn't help him. He coerced her to help him escape, basically.
Yeah.
But she detains him because he thinks that she is on his side and was also the person that tipped off Summer about stuff.
He thinks she's Serpico, or
Serpico,
Scorpio, whatever the fuck its name is, Scipius.
But
Space
anyway,
Marine 2.
But she's not.
Yeah.
And in fact, she like turns around and like arrests him and he's like, oh, come on. He's like, damn it. Because he wasn't expecting it,
Oh, man.
But she walks him outside with all the cops and she's like, it's okay. I've got him detained. Like, it's over. And like, it's like not a play. Like, this is real this time. But the cops are like, no. They're not like, this is not enough.
He's got to go.
And so the really shitty cop like takes the SD cards and just destroys them all there.
He's smashing them with his feet.
Yeah. So all that evidence is gone, and his cousin's arrest is gone now too.
Plus, one of them drugged Summer again.
Same cop, same guy.
Cop. That's right. Yeah.
Also overdosed Summer on, I guess, heroin or something again, and she's like dying in the backseat of his cruiser right now. And he's like, your time's running out.
Time's running out, boy.
I know. I was gonna say boy, but I was like, it feels like racist. I'm like, well, he is like, you could tell he's super racist coded.
100%.
At this point, it's revealed that Pam's ex-husband guy,
is Serpico.
That cop, he is actually the more sympathetic cop that's kind of on Summer and Terry's side.
Yes.
Well, he's on Summer's side.
He's the informant guy.
He is the least corrupt cop, I guess, on this force right now that we know of.
Except he's the one who pulled over what's his name first.
I know. Well, that's the thing. I'm going to touch on this when I finish the plot. Hang on.
Okay. All right.
Because that's the part of like the whole thing about this film. So Officer Marston, I think his name is, protests now. And he's like, hey, you're taking this too far. You're about to kill a woman and we've got Terry detained. Like, we won. What is going on?
Yeah.
And the evil cop is like, I'm ready to kill him right now. And Summer's dying in my backseat. And Officer Marston is like, what the fuck? And like points his gun at this cop.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
That's when, and they were like having a Mexican standoff kind of thing right now.
Yeah.
And the police chief walks out and just shoots Officer Marston
fucking leg.
in the leg. And importantly, I think he hits
the femoral artery. Because he aimed, he thought it was going to be a flesh wound, and then
he's like, oh, he'll be fine, and he's like, oh, he's bleeding pretty bad.
Yeah, he's like, no, he's not looking too good.
But he does this. He thinks to de-escalate the situation, and he doesn't like that. I guess one of his officers is pointing a gun at another one of his officers. But like, this is where the shootout happens.
Right.
So Terry breaks free.
How the fuck does he get out of the handcuffs?
I don't recall, but I trust that he was capable enough to do it. I don't remember what happened. At this point, the police chief is like, we're going to kill Terry, and we'll say that he shot Officer Marston. Yeah. So Terry, gets free. It manages to grab the Dazzler, the grenade launcher, and starts shooting smoke grenades all in the parking lot. And
I think he actually hits somebody.
Oh, he knocks the fuck out of a few guys for sure.
No, but I think he hits somebody with one of the grenades.
Oh, sure. But they're less than lethal, quote unquote. But he doesn't kill anybody, importantly. He does not kill or shoot anybody.
Anytime he gets a gun, he
disables
all of the fucking bullets out of it before he uses it.
Although I do think he whacked the shit out of one of the guys with a shotgun.
With the shotgun, yeah. He
physically whacked him with it.
Dude, it's so good. He gets the shotgun in his hand, like he kicks it up to his hands.
He unloads
pumps
all the
whole
shells.
fucking thing and then hits somebody with it. It's so good.
The most violent thing he does is he absolutely destroys a man's arm.
Oh, yeah.
Like that. I don't think that man's ever using that arm again. Like, it was so nasty.
But he's like racing against the clock because
he's got to get to the cruiser that Summer is dying in so that he can get her to the hospital.
And importantly, the dude who just got shot in his leg.
So one of the things he does in this firefight, like in the middle of all the smoke
screen, that's right.
He makes a smoke screen and he drags the cop that's dying into the car with Summer. Or just to the side at first. And the cop explains, like, listen, if you activate the sirens on the police cruiser, it will record the last 3 minutes of footage so that all of this will be on camera and me getting shot and everything.
Not just that, but there's also Narcan in the car.
And he's like, and there's Narcan in the car so you can rescue Summer. But he's like, but also it will record like the police chief saying like, we're going to kill you and pin all this on you and all this stuff.
And
so that's his new goal now.
And if you get into a pinch, you need to rip the DVR out of the trunk of the vehicle.
Yeah, he also tells him, the backup is in the trunk. Yeah. So Terry like fucking kicks the shit out of all these cops.
He McMaps all over the place.
Yeah. Manages to drag the dying cop into the car with Summer.
Yeah.
And activates the siren. And then you see the police chief look up and realize and go, oh shit.
Yeah.
And so he gets on the road, and but I do think they shoot out one of his tires, and then now it's just
one of the tires is obliterated.
Yeah, and now it's just a big police chase going down the highway, and so there's a bunch of cops in front of him and behind him. I think the police chief,
he's in a SUV.
He's in a big SUV, and he gets in front of him, and they're all just like, "Oh God, let me refresh
basically
this."
Saying like, "Hey, let's hit a pit maneuver."
Yeah, they hear over the radio because they're in a police cruiser. They can hear the cops talking to each other and what they're planning to do. And they mention that like there are state police waiting like at the end of the highway, just in just a few miles. And he's like, if we can make it to the state police, like we'll be okay. Like they won't pull anything in front of them. He administers Narcan to Summer, so she's recovering.
That's right. Oh yeah, and as she's recovering, because
she's awake for this scene.
The dickhead police officer is like hanging on the side of the
that's
vehicle.
right. They fight him off of the side of the cop car.
She's the one that pushes him off the vehicle.
Yeah. I don't think you see him the rest of the movie.
You don't. After that, you don't see him. And then Sims is in one of the the cars.
Right. The more quote unquote sympathetic officer, but did detain him and almost ruin the whole plan. But yeah, the cops start talking about pulling a pit maneuver, which is where they hit the rear end of your car so that you lose control and the car either skids off the road or flips and everybody dies. It can go either way.
Yeah.
But
you never really know.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen a lot of police chases, but you see Sims, her cruiser pulls up alongside them and they all look at her and it's almost like they all like are in their eyes, like accepting death. And she just pulls forward.
And you hear the chief go, you overshot your...
You missed him. And she's like,
you missed your mark
no,
there.
I didn't. And then she pulls the pit maneuver on the police chief's car.
Yeah.
And he goes flying off the road. And she, the camera cuts to her arresting him in the car. Yeah. And then the rest of the police escort Terry and the dying officer and Summer
to the hospital,
to a hospital. And when they get there, Terry, brings Summer in, and then the doctors whisk her away. Then he goes into the trunk of the cruiser, rips out the DVR,
and sits with it
and sits down in the hospital, just cradling it like it's the only thing in his life that matters. And it just cuts to credits, and you see cops like fighting in the background with the state police. It's so crazy. That's how the movie ends. So now, there's been a lot of hubbub.
Oh, has there?
Rightly so, about how this movie ends, because a lot of people wanted it to end with him killing all these cops, or at least the police chief. Maybe.
I say that lessens the point of.
I agree.
Of
and now
of the character.
I'm of two minds of this, because on one hand, I love an action movie. I love bad guys getting shot or whatever.
Yeah,
but like, it's not realistic.
No,
it's not true justice in a sense, if you will. I think this movie is trying to say, like, this guy is a man of restraint.
Mm-hmm. And of good moral character.
Right. And he doesn't solve things. He's not a murderer, essentially.
Yeah.
And he's not going to solve things by killing people. Like, that's just not in the equation, He'd only kill to save another life, essentially, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But it's just not in the cards for him. Now, on the other hand, I could see there have been arguments that, like, the movie goes the way it does, and Terry is such an upstanding model person, because that's the only way some people would be able to be on his side watching this movie, with someone beating up the police, essentially.
That's a good...
Where it's like, he is literally so good that at no point in this film does he ever make something that you could disagree with, because he's so upstanding, but like, did the movie have to make him that way so that you can always be on his side and not think, oh, well, he should have just complied, or, oh, well, he wasn't listening to the officers, or he shouldn't have been there at this time, blah, blah. Because you always hear that fucking bullshit whenever somebody gets killed by the police or whatever.
100%. Oh, dude, I've seen it.
Yeah. And I've had that exact argument with people too. It's very annoying. But, so like, on one hand, I think you can make the argument that, like, this movie is trying to say, like, here is the most moral, upstanding person that could ever be in the situation.
And look at how this would
this is how it's resolved. He still had to break the law, but he never, like, endangered anyone's life, at least. He was only about saving lives at all times. You know? I ultimately, I like the ending of this film. In the moment, I was really disappointed. I was like, oh, man, that's it? Like, they just knocked the guy off the road? So... I was also mad at this movie because I felt like it was saying not all cops, but I thought about it more, and it's not.
Well, what I was going to say is,
go ahead.
Because I've watched this movie twice now.
Yeah.
Because the first time I fell asleep because it's a 2-hour long movie, and I started it at 11 o'clock.
It's longer than you'd expect. Yeah.
The end of the movie kind of baffled me. Why was there such a change of heart? The cops? With the cops, exactly.
I got an answer for you.
The only thing was that they realized the police chief is willing to sell out any of them in order to keep...
He turned on a cop.
Yep.
That's the dividing line.
Yeah, you can see on the second watch through, you can see on the faces, especially the cop that Terry rams his car into.
Yeah.
He's there, and when... Don Swanson, whatever the fuck his name is, Don Johnson. Wow, man, I am
Chief Marston, I think.
I'm fucking up the names really hard.
It's okay.
When he shoots Pam's ex-husband,
I have no idea what his name is.
Yeah, I don't
real
either.
Or in the movie. Yeah.
Like you can see like a lot of their expressions like really change,
because that's when the whole department turns on him, essentially.
But that's the thing, is that they don't, because like there's a shootout and they're all trying to kill Terry.
I think there is a contingent of cops at that point that withdraw, and I think they're the ones who are leading the police chase because they weren't fucked up in the fight.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because there's like more aggressive, more aggro cops that he fucks up.
Yeah,
especially the really shitty one.
Yeah,
I wish I got his name. It doesn't matter. But
I've got the IMDb pulled up.
Yeah,
it's the actor's name is Emery Cohen. He's Officer Stephen Lan.
Emery Cohen did a great job being a shitty cop person, that everybody hates. Like, you just instantly are like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's like the Britta meme from Community where she's like, I can excuse racism, but I draw the line at hurting animals. But in this film, it's like, I can excuse like corruption and racism, but I draw the line at shooting another officer.
Yeah.
And like, that's that's where they turn on him. You know,
Right.
that's where they're like, now we're on Terry's side, even though he was right from the beginning.
It's true.
But yeah, this isn't an ACAB movie. Like that was my thing at the end was like, oh, they're like, oh, actually there are good cops and they will be on the side of justice in the end. I don't think that's what the movie is quite saying.
No.
I feel like the movie is trying to be palatable to people who don't subscribe to like Black Lives Matter, ACAB, defund the police, any of that, or any kind of criticism of the police, essentially, outside of like the most egregious examples, maybe. So that like a more broad general audience, exactly, can see this and understand where it's coming from and not be turned off by it. But at the same time, I think it's still saying like, no, the system is still broken. Yeah. Those cops only are saving Terry in this moment because the chief shot another cop. Terry himself, I think the film signals this by showing Terry still doesn't feel safe. And at the end of the hospital, he's very guarding that DVR with his life. Because like even though the police chief has been arrested, he's like, this could still go wrong any minute. I don't trust the cops to have this in their possession. Yeah. I feel like that's what the film is saying. It's not explicit enough for some people, but like the more I rolled it around in my head and like thought about it and read some more, criticism about it, that's where I came down. Like, and if you flip through like the letterbox reviews and stuff, there's a lot of people were like, well, he didn't kill any of the cops. Like I got blue balled by this kind of thing, or whatever. And it's like, that's not what this movie is.
No, it's definitely not. And like, I think the director definitely goes out of his way to constantly show Terry removing all the bullets out of every single firearm that he touches. He never has a loaded weapon. And goes out of his way to make sure that the conflict is resolved with like minimal damage to both parties. And stuff. I guess my criticism of the film, because I did have like a couple things that I did not like, and it had nothing to do with I wanted him to go on a crazy rampage and murder all these fucking cops. I didn't care for that.
I just feel like that is the biggest complaint that people have about this film.
That's not the
no, absolutely not. And like I respect it for having the restraint to not become like a really gritty, nasty movie where they're just killing people.
Right. If you go out and look at Saulnier's other films, all of them are very much rooted in reality and possibility.
Absolutely. They're realism. Yeah. And even like Blue Ruin is like a revenge movie where the guy is like out to kill some people. Yeah. And like it is not the best outcome. It is horrible.
He hurts himself all the fucking time in that film too.
And he even has to reckon at the end with like, was this the right choice to get a revenge kill,
Yeah. But anyways, I guess the problem that I had with this movie was I'm gonna bring it back to RuPaul's Drag Race.
Okay.
Right? Okay. If they ever watch
fracking.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically fracking. So in that show, oftentimes they have competitions, and usually when a competition has to do with like singing, acting, or comedy, the people who start off at like a peak and never ever go away from that peak, it becomes a plateau. And that is a problem because, the art of comedy is, peaks and valleys, like giving people a chance to relax so that you can hit them with another punchline instead of just like, constant.
Not only peaks and valleys, but you're supposed to start strong and end strong.
Exactly. Right.
And when you learn that formula, you'll see it all the time whenever you watch stand up or a sitcom even. Yeah.
Same thing with like the singing competitions or the acting competitions. If you are constantly in a state of stupor or excitement or whatever, and you hold that the entire time, there's not enough variance to make it entertaining. Right. Yeah. So not to say that this movie wasn't entertaining, but the tension started off immediately.
Yeah. Within 10 minutes of the film is already being knocked off his bike by cops and his whole day is being fucked.
Yeah. And you never get a chance to really rest. Like even the parts where he's talking with Summer, like explaining stuff, you can still see like the whole situation is weighing on Terry. And if Terry is like the insert for the audience, like I can only imagine how the audience feels. Yeah. It just felt like the whole movie was just like a constant state of high anxiety and tension, and it never really goes away. I mean, even at the very end of the movie, Terry is holding on to this the footage like his life fucking depends on it, because it does in a way. Yeah. And that's how the film
the whole
ends.
case is built around this thing he's clutching now.
Exactly. And if there was a little bit of editing to give an ending that was maybe more calm, or like they closed the loop, because it's you end it with uncertainty. You hope that Terry is going to be fine, and I guess like good directors do like discussion around their film, and an open-ended ending is a good way to do that. In my experience watching this film, it felt like there needed to be maybe 5 minutes of closure.
Well, to me, it ends on that note because I think the movie is trying to speak on how policing as a system is broken.
Sure.
And it can't be solved by just one guy on a, moral rampage, essentially. Like even he cannot undo all of this, and if this DVR goes away or is destroyed or whatever, his whole case falls apart and he won't be able to prove that like there's a super evil guy that's been ruining people's lives.
I guess what I would have liked, and not to say that the director needed to do this.
Yeah.
But for me personally, it would have been nice to have a small time skip. He's in court. We see that he's made it there. He's got the evidence, and he wins his case. That would be a nice way. Oh,
that's too clean. I
understand. I know that's not like
this filmmaker does not.
I know he
do
doesn't.
that.
I know he doesn't.
But I like that about it too, because it's not that clean. Nothing is that clean.
Not for this movie.
It's not a Marvel movie. You know what I mean? You're not going to get a conclusion. It's not
Jared.
slut for the.
Don't do it, Jared. Don't do it. I just got done talking about how much I love this fucking director. Don't do it to me, man. There are two wolves inside of me. One of them likes slop and one of them likes good movies. Okay.
You needed Terry to address the audience and go, "Hey, I'm aware I'm in this movie, by the way."
No, that's not. Shut the fuck up, dude. Anyways, this next part isn't a criticism of mine, because I think the character of Terry is like fantastic, and the actor who portrayed him was like spot on, like perfect for the role. But what I was going to say was, because Terry is morally infallible, you do give a bone to bad actors and people who fight disingenuously to be like, oh, he's a Gary Stu. This would never happen. A person like this does not exist in the real world.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. And for our listeners, a Gary Stu is like the male version of a Mary Sue, which is a character that's like too perfect, like has too many powers and no weaknesses sort of thing, right?
Yeah,
and
that's essentially what
didn't put in the work, I think, is the trope. Yeah. I had to think for a minute even what that was.
Okay. That's you got it.
But I wanted to explain it to the listeners as well. Well, funny you should mention that.
Oh shit, dude!
I have some trivia for you about this
Jared.
film.
Did you plan all this stuff out? Are you too good at your job? Are you McMapping me right now?
I'm on the Wikipedia page of podcasts, by the way. So this film had a very long and troubled production.
Did it?
Mostly because of COVID, well, not mostly, but somewhat because of COVID, because it started, it had to halt because of COVID, and production restarted in 2021. And unfortunately, it shut down again halfway through filming because the lead star unexpectedly dropped out.
Oh, is Terry not the...
Aaron Pierre was not the original lead of this film.
Who was it?
John Boyega.
No shit. Why'd he drop out?
He stated a family emergency. There are rumors out there that I have seen that he was unsatisfied with the script and with the accommodations, the hotel or trailer, whatever that he was staying in.
Oh,
there's a lot of hubbub about this.
That's
online.
Unfortunate, because I like John Boyega. I think he's a great actor.
Really like John Boyega,
and like the Star Wars films really fucked him, and like he did not get a good shake up.
I have nothing nice to say about The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, me either.
Who does?
Like, dude, and I went through.
It's not even The Last Jedi, where there's like people that hate it and love it.
Yeah.
We love that film on Debaser, by the way.
We do love that film, yes.
But The Rise of Skywalker was bad for everybody.
It's so sad. Like, I went through all stages of grief for that film, because like I really wanted to like it, and there was just like not a lot there for even me. And as you've stated previously, I love slop. I slop that shit up. But even that slop was tainted.
And I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, oh, I always hated him. I was always a J.J. Abrams skeptic.
Oh, word?
J.J. Abrams.
Sorry, yeah.
His only film of his I liked was that first Star Trek reboot. With,
I liked the first and second one. That third one was awful.
I heard that. I never saw it. I never got around to it, but I did like the first one a lot. And I'm not even a Star Trek guy, but I was
Me
like,
either.
this Star Trek is cool.
This is for me. Yeah.
Because it was big and had lens flare and explosions. But I don't like J.J. Abrams' movies. I didn't care for Super 8. I didn't like Alias.
You didn't like Super 8?
No.
Oh,
it did
I really-
nothing for me. I feel like I wasn't alive in the 70s, so none of this nostalgia play is working on me.
Oh, I enjoyed Super 8.
And I like I like Spielberg movies, and that's all that movie was, a ripoff.
Didn't Abrams do Cloverfield?
He
The
also
first
did
one?
Cloverfield, yes.
You know me. I love that film.
I saw that in theaters and was like really
I saw it
let
in
down
theaters too.
by
And
it.
I really enjoyed it. Okay, well, it is
really
what it is.
I really wanted that movie to be something else. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm
So you were JJ skeptic, and when they brought him back for the third movie, you were like, "Oh, this is gonna be bad."
Yeah. And Force Awakens was like serviceable.
Yeah.
And then Last Jedi like really blew me away. And like the more time passes, the more I'm like, yeah, that's one of the best Star Wars movies maybe ever.
100%.
That's not hyperbole, or hyperbole, if you will, as I would always say. Okay, so back to the film. John Boyega dropped out of this film for, let's say, unknown reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the official statement was that he dropped out due to a family emergency. But there are rumors out there. But we may never know. Maybe there'll be a tell-all book one day. Anyway, Aaron Pierre was eventually cast to replace John Boyega.
Well, he knocked it out of the fucking park.
Yes, he did.
And it's
in fact, this movie has, I think, made him a star now.
Yeah, I think Boyega definitely fucked up not keeping it. That's really unfortunate.
Yeah, but I've also seen people being like, they were like, I don't know if Boyega would have been as effective as Aaron Pierre is in this.
You
know?
think?
Yeah. Oh, do you know what other movie you know Aaron Pierre from?
Old. Yeah.
Oh, you did know it was
yeah.
him? Okay,
Well,
he's mid-sized sedan and
yeah,
old.
yeah. When I was watching the film,
I was worried you were going to clock it and be against the movie from the beginning.
No, it's actually funny. So like when it was the McMap scene,
Yeah.
where he's like he's explaining pace and whatnot, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy? He is so good. And I pulled up the IMDb and I was like, oh, he's an old. That's really unfortunate. And then I just kept watching because I was like, dude, I don't think anything is gonna would make me turn on this director unless he really just like shit the fucking bed. But
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think he's got the capability of being bad at his job. So
No, I don't think so. Even his Netflix original is like a banger. He knocked it out of the park, and that's when directors kind of slub it sometimes.
yeah.
The lightning bolt tattoo on Terry's forearm, is the cover of Bad Brains' first album, Bad Brains, self-titled. It is an all-black punk band from Washington, D.C. That are famous pioneers of the hard rock and hardcore punk music scene of the 70s and 80s.
That's really cool.
I think their biggest single is Eye Against Eye, which is a really good song.
I think Saulnier likes punk.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't make green room and
Yeah,
not
you don't.
love
That's
like
true.
hardcore punk music and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. And my last factoid here. According to a report in 2020 by the Institute for Justice, between the year 2000 and 2020, states and the federal government obtained at least $68 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars through civil forfeiture. This data only included 45 states, and not all of those states provided full figures, so this number is believed to be considerably lower than the actual amount they have obtained. Florida law enforcement is responsible for at least $1 billion of that $68 billion alone.
That's fucking insane, dude.
Yep. It's a little,
I had
little
a
fact.
being in the Warhammer community for as long as I have, you meet a lot of characters and
Yeah.
stuff. One of my buddies for a while lived in Alaska before he moved down here, and he never said he was like affiliated with any gangs, but he knew like gangs and shit there.
Whoa.
And the one thing that he would always say to me is, the biggest gang out there are the police. So let that, and that he's not wrong, baby.
I'm making a DreamWorks face at you right now.
A DreamWorks face?
Yeah, I can't quite do it because I don't have full control of my eye muscles like that, but you know what I mean. You've never seen that meme where it's like every DreamWorks character cover photo, and they're all doing
yes.
the
Sorry.
smirk.
I was getting DreamWorks mixed up with Pixar for some fucking reason.
Oh,
But
I
no,
mean,
I know exactly what you're talking
They're
about.
probably doing it now too, honestly, because they're like, yeah, we're not making good movies anymore. Remember
Inside
they said
Out 2
that?
was really good.
What?
Inside Out 2 was really good.
Yeah, but they right before that came out.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah,
They
were
said
like,
that like we're not making like personal movies anymore.
Yeah, we're done with that. We're
just
doing
gonna make
sequels.
like broad crap. Yeah,
all sequels, baby. That's why.
But then Inside Out 2 was like,
Well, that's why I'm seeing Wild Robot this weekend.
Yeah.
Or this week on Friday.
Is that a Pixar?
It's DreamWorks,
Okay.
but it's a kind of an original property. It's not a sequel.
Yeah.
It's based on a book, you know.
Oh, so it's not that original.
No, but still, it's like
not new
it's not a
IP.
franchise.
Well, it's a book, so
Shut the fuck.
technically.
Oh my god! You know what, Jared? You're the
Deadpool's based on a
You're the
book.
reason why animation is going to die, and all we're going to get is slop. Thank you, Jared.
What are you talking about?
You are the reason why. it's
I own
dying.
every Studio Ghibli steelbook.
Shut up.
Well, folks, that's been our show. Thank you for listening to Debaser. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to us on your podcast app and follow us on social media by searching for @DebaserPod. My wonderful co-host is Will. Will, where can people find you? And do you have anything to plug?
You can find me on Instagram at pocket_infinity. I don't think I have anything to plug at the moment. Nothing's like really, jumped out at me. Yeah. Oh, I guess I would plug Wild Robot. This comes out on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So that comes out on Friday. Hey, look, animation, especially children's animation, is really important. It's a art that is slowly dying, unfortunately. Movie executives only want to bet on surefire things, and so we're getting sequel after sequel, remake after remake. I mean, god damn it, the best animated movie for a while there was the fucking Lion King remake, and that thing was awful. It just got beat out by Inside Out 2. So this is done by the studio that did Puss in Boots, Last Wish, which, if you've listened to our show, you would know we fucking loved that movie.
Yeah.
It was so good. And it is really important to keep this genre of film alive. So if you care about animation at all, like I do, go see fucking Wild Robot. Make sure that thing, makes it that we keep getting more good animation.
I don't know if that movie's going to need our help, though.
Well, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
You never know. Because
DreamWorks rarely doesn't have a hit on their hands. You know what I mean? Like,
sure, but I guess
because even their real slop makes decent money.
right. I guess
what was that duck movie? That
I don't even know.
Never mind.
And that was Illumination first and foremost.
Oh, excuse me. That's right. That's
Okay.
the real slop.
That's the real slop. I guess what I'm getting at is that if this movie makes a gazillion amount of money, studios will point at it and say, "Oh shit, what's going on here? Maybe we should look into this more," because we've lost. I'm not trying to get on a soapbox here, especially because I know you're tired and you want to wrap it up, but we have lost or almost lost animation as an art. Think about when me and you were growing up, in the 2000s, we had all sorts of great hand-drawn shows, the Batman show, all the Batman animations, Iron Giant, the Tales of Sinbad, El Dorado, the original Land Before Time, not Fievel Goes West, but, American Tail.
Yeah.
These animations that were done by Don Bluth, and I can't remember the guys who did the Disney Renaissance, but we grew up with some fantastic films with real art, and storytelling in them. And it feels like a lot of that is going away. You either get a Pixar or a DreamWorks and that's it. And even then, that's not hand drawn. We've lost that.
It's all 3D animated.
It's all 3D animated, and you can do a lot of these really cool stylistic things. I love what they've done with, the Spider-Verse movies and whatnot, and especially the studio that does those, or influence, I guess, animation that we have now, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film that came out not too long ago.
Yeah. Secret of the Ooze? Was that? No, that's the that's the live action one. My bad.
Yeah, but it's important to
People's
me.
Joker, honestly.
Oh yeah,
could be on that
Joker.
list.
Yeah, 100%. It is a dying art that we, as people who are fans of film, need to rally behind so that we keep getting more of them, because that is important.
Yeah.
And when it's gone, and you may never get it again. So
yeah. Well, on that note, today we're recording this on the first day of autumn.
Right.
It doesn't quite feel like it here in Florida yet, but it's a little crisper out there.
There was a nice little breeze this morning when I took my kid to Disney.
Yeah.
So,
but I'm going to plug.
Shit.
In the spirit of your pick, a little cartoon that I love. I was so hyped for it when it was being previewed too. And I had no idea it was going to be the amazing thing that it was, but Over the Garden Wall.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a limited series. I think it's like 6 or 7 episodes.
Yeah.
I own the DVD because I had to snatch that up.
Oh, 100%.
But I think it's streaming on
It's
Max,
on Hulu. It's on Hulu, I believe.
It's on Hulu right now. Because it was a Cartoon Network thing, but who knows who gets those rights? Because technically that's Warner Brothers, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. So it's on Hulu right now. Go check out Over the Garden Wall. It is a wonderful, it's a children's cartoon, but
it's good.
It can appeal to all ages.
Yeah.
And there are some darker undertones there that are going to go over a lot of kids' heads, but that are it's an amazing thing to drag out during autumn because it encapsulates the aesthetics of fall. It's a little spooky, but like in a fun way.
Yeah. And it's whimsical.
It's very whimsical. It's so fun. It's very fun though. Highly recommended. It's something that the whole family can enjoy. Or, just a single guy in his 30s, watching it alone in his living room. But I think that's it. So for the Debaser Podcast, I'm Jared Rusk.
Thanks for listening.
Goodbye, everybody. Debaser is hosted and produced by Will Taylor and Jared Rusk. Want to email the show? Send it to podcast@debaserpod.com. Want to help us out? Please leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice, especially Apple Podcasts. If you write a 5-star review of Debaser on Apple Podcasts, I may read your review in a future episode. Thanks for listening, and take care out there.